Hey guys, I have been looking forward to this. Today I'm finally doing a tribute video and announcing an art contest in honor of one of my favorite artists, favorite human beings to ever walk the earth, the one and only Bob Ross. The Happy Little Trees December Art Challenge begins right now. The rules of the contest are incredibly simple. Just make a Bob Ross inspired painting. And that can be as loose or as directive an interpretation as you want it to be. You can try to match Bob Ross brushstroke for brushstroke, or you can kind of just make it into your own thing. I think that's something I really like that Bob Ross always talked about was he wasn't trying to show anybody something to copy. He was just trying to show everyone a few tricks and kind of turn your creativity loose, kind of let you do your own thing. So I think that's what we should do here. That's definitely what I'm doing in this painting that I'm attempting. I'm not fighting my habits as a concept artist. I'm using the tools that I usually do, but trying to do something that feels like a Bob Ross painting, that kind of captures that Bob Ross essence. And what that is to me is a few things. It's kind of a mood most of all. All of Bob Ross's paintings were these really quiet, incredibly peaceful landscapes. They had this great sense of depth and distance and just felt serene. So that's what I'm going for here. I'm going to do one of those great snowy landscapes with a giant mountain, maybe a little snowy cabin. Very Bob Ross stuff there. But I'm kind of making it my own thing too. I'm not fighting my instincts and habits as a concept artist. So when you're doing your own painting, just kind of do your own thing. Make it whatever feels cool to you. So you do you, make something that you love, and you'll do great in this contest. We will leave it open until shortly before the holidays so that we can name some winners and hand out some fun prizes before everyone breaks for the holiday. I unironically love Bob Ross. He was maybe one of my most important early inspirations as an artist. I can remember watching The Joy of Painting as a really young kid, maybe like 6, and it blew my mind. One of my favorite things in art came from Joy of Painting. It's that moment when Bob Ross would do a brush stroke or just a roll of paint coming off of his palette knife would turn from being a blob of paint into something that looked real. This little roll of titanium white would break and turn into a whole mountain full of snow and rocks and trees in one brush stroke. It was absolute magic to me. I did not know how that was possible, and I just wanted that power for myself as soon as I saw it. I have Bob Ross to thank for that. Chasing that thrill, that moment when the marks coming out of your brush actually turn into something that looks real or even beautiful. Still one of my greatest thrills as an artist. One of the things that keeps me fired up to come to work every day is chasing that thing. So in my early steps for this painting, I'm trying to get a general composition, but I'm mostly just leaning on atmospheric perspective. Another thing that Bob Ross didn't really name specifically, but he still taught really well was that idea that far away things are lighter, are more close to the color of the sky, creating that authentic sense of distance. even something that I do in production art, concept art, professionally to this day, a lot of it derives from that simple Bob Ross principle. If it's farther away, it should be lighter. I just did a pretty complicated cyberpunk cityscape video, and it looks like about the farthest thing away from a Bob Ross happy little tree painting as it could be, right? It's a happy little cyberpunk cityscape. But even though the subject matter is completely different, a lot of the underlying principles of landscape painting came from those early days watching The Joy of Painting. So just pushing stuff back into the atmosphere, making it look like that mountain is 10 miles away, but this pine tree is so close I can smell it. Really powerful. It gives paintings this authentic sense of hugeness and depth. Another Bob Ross lesson that I think is really important, but one of the hardest ones to learn, is just letting go. This guy would make paintings, probably several a day, that took about 22 minutes of actual paint time. From start to finish, he'd go from a blank canvas to something that was, ready to be framed in that amount of time with no editing, no redos. He didn't even have undo if he made a mistake. And I think that created this really nice sense of looseness and expressiveness. One of the hardest fought lessons in my own work is trying to work that way, trying to kind of embrace things that seem to go wrong and just roll with it. One of the most famous Bob-isms is happy little accidents. When I was a kid, I remember thinking that was just a dumb euphemism. Like, okay, when something goes wrong, we just name it something that sounds nice and it's actually okay. Like, instead of a catastrophic error, let's call it a little whoopsie. But I don't think that's what he really meant. I think it's happy accident means if something goes wrong, work with it, and it might actually end up being something that you really love. Wasn't an accident or a mistake at all, but this unpredictable, unexpected little thing that just happened to your painting. And if you can weave those unexpected, dynamic events into your work, it can have these really beautiful results that you never could have consciously planned or engineered for yourself. It just sort of happens. Let's talk about storytelling, another key pillar of environment art that was right in front of us even in the 80s when Bob Ross was doing Joy of Painting, and I wasn't even aware of it. Actually, every time he calls something a happy little whatever, he is kind of giving it a personality and a story. He would talk about groups of trees being a family, kind of growing together on a little side of a lake or something. He would talk about clouds floating around in the sky as if they were these free things in nature that were just going about their business. That way that Bob would sort of put human personality into these elements of nature to give them a story, kind of bring them to life. That's a really huge part of environment art that was present in the joy of painting, and just I didn't have the name for it until much later in life, but it was there the whole time. I love that. I think about those things, trying to make the stories that we tell with our environment art, even with characters or ships or creatures. It all has a story to tell. And the realer that story is in the artist's mind while it's being created, the better it comes across to the viewer. So as I start to wrap this one up, I have to add the little snowy cabin. I think that is super on brand for something that is joy of painting inspired. So really fun to do too. It kind of takes it from being this vague storytelling thing we're doing with trees and clouds into something much more human. A little house with a chimney, little glowy windows. Just brings the whole thing to life a little bit. Always a favorite part of mine if a Bob Ross painting had one of these, so I just had to do it. I can't wait to see the entries that you guys come up with this. This one's definitely giving me this nice snowy holiday vibe, so it's early, but I want to wish everyone very happy holidays, and I hope you'll participate. I think this will be a really fun kind of holiday-themed challenge. So, to Bob Ross, one of the greatest artists, teachers, and human beings ever to walk the earth, we thank you and we miss you. I think the world could use you right about now, but your spirit and your techniques live on. I really like how this turned out. I hope if you try something like this, you will submit it for the contest. Let's see what everyone can come up with. Oh, and if you want to use the brushes that I'm using in this video, I'll make those free and available on our Discord server, which I will link in the description. Have a great week, guys. Happy holidays, and paint something cool today.